Hello from Halifax. This is Jo with Jo to the World Creations, and today we're going to be making my Lacy baby blanket crochet pattern. This pattern is available for free on my website, or you can purchase the print-ready PDF, and there are links to both in the description below this video. This is an easy pattern and creates a blanket that is approximately 37 inches wide and 42 inches high, including the border. What you will need to complete this blanket is approximately 1,448 yards of size 3 light yarn for the size that I've just indicated. I used 4 skeins of Bernette Softy Baby in the color Soft Red, and that yarn is a size 3 light and 100% acrylic. I recommend using a size H or 8 5mm crochet hook, and you'll also need scissors, yarn needle, and a measuring tape. As I mentioned, the pattern creates a blanket that is 37 inches wide, and the pattern is made from the chain row up, and the chain row determines the width of the blanket. So to make the width of the blanket bigger or smaller, adjust the number of starting chains in multiples of 8 plus 4. And to make the height of the blanket bigger or smaller, make more or fewer rows. All right, let's get started. With my yarn, and I've got my hook here, the first thing we're going to do is make a slip knot. And put it onto our hook and pull tight. So to make a blanket that is 37 inches wide, we are going to chain 124. So you go ahead and chain 124 or your desired number of starting chains in multiples of 8 plus 4 and come back to the video when you have your number of starting chains completed. With your starting chains now complete, we are going to begin row 1. And for this video, I'm just going to be making a small swatch to show you step by step how to make this blanket, but it's not the full width that the pattern actually creates. So to start row 1, we are going to work in the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In that 4th chain, we are going to make 3 double crochet stitches into the same chain. So into that same chain, make 3 double crochet stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to skip the next 3 chains. So we skip 1, 2, 3. And in the following chain, we are going to make a V-stitch. And what a V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet into the same chain or stitch. So let's do that together. We've skipped 3, and into the following chain, we're going to double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet into the same chain. Next, we are going to skip the next 3 stitches, or I should say chains, 1, 2, 3, and in the following chain, we are going to make a shell. And what a shell is 7 double crochet stitches into the same chain or stitch. So let's make 7 double crochet stitches into the same chain. And this is the part that begins the repeat for the round. So let's just make note of what we're going to be repeating, and it starts with this first shell. I'll explain everything, but just so you note. So there's 2 in the same, and we're going to make 3 and keep going till you've done 7. And as you work a number of double crochet stitches into the same chain, you'll notice that the chain after it gets really small. There's 5, 6, and 7. And it's really important to note that the next chain gets really small because we don't want to miss it. We're going to be skipping the next 3 chains, but you want to make sure that you're not accidentally thinking that it's part of this chain. So just make sure that you see the next chain, even though it's going to be quite small because we've pulled a lot on this one, but that is the next chain. So the next thing we're going to do is skip the next 3 chains, but just make sure you've skipped the small one. So we're going to skip the next 3, 1, 2, 3, and in the following chain, we are going to V-stitch. A V-stitch, once again, is a double crochet, and then a chain 1, and then another double crochet into the same chain. Now at this point, you can probably see there's a lot of big holes. Don't worry, these holes get a lot smaller as the pattern grows, so don't change hooks or yarn at this point. Just stay with it, and I can assure you that the holes get a lot smaller as the pattern grows. So now that we've completed the V-stitch, the next thing we're going to do is skip the next 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. And remember how I said, oh, let's note that the shell stitch started the repeat? So that is the next thing we're going to do, followed by skipping 3 chains and then another V-stitch and skipping 3 chains. And we're going to do that all the way across the row. But we'll do one more together. So I've just completed a V-stitch. Now we're going to skip 3 chains. In the next chain, we're going to do a shell. And the shell is 7 double crochet stitches into the same chain. Perfect. So there's my 7 double crochet stitches into the same chain, which is a shell. And now we're going to skip the next 3 chains. Remember, the one right after the shell can be a little small. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do a V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet into the same chain. And then skip 3 stitches. So please do that all the way across the row, where you're going to make a shell, skip 3 stitches, do a V-stitch, and then skip 3 stitches. And I keep saying stitches, but right now we're working in the chain row, so skip the chains. Once again, make a shell, skip 3 chains, make a V-stitch, skip 3 chains, and do that all the way across the row. Thereafter, you're finished your last V-stitch on the row. There should be, well, the pattern says to skip 3 chains after a V-stitch. So you'll see here I have 1, 2, 3, which is included in the repeat, but there's 1 chain left. So come back to the video when you've completed the row and we'll do that last chain together. So as I've mentioned, after your last V-stitch, you should have your 3 chains that you should be skipping, and then there's 1 chain left. In that last chain, we are going to double crochet 4 times into that same chain. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that last chain can get loose, so you can just tighten it up. And that completes row 1. If you are following the pattern exactly, you should have 135 stitches. And a reminder that chains never count as stitches. So when you're counting your stitches, for example, in this V-stitch, you're only going to count the double crochet stitches, not the chain 1 that we made in the middle. For a breakdown of the stitch count on each row, please refer to the written instructions. All right, let's start row 2. All right, for row 2, we are going to chain 3, 2, 3, and turn. For this pattern, you're always going to work into the first stitch, which is the stitch that's attached to the chains. So always, always, always work into that first stitch. Into that first stitch for row 2, we are going to double crochet. In the second stitch, we are going to also double crochet. Now we're going to skip the next 3 stitches. So the stitches, you can see here that we're going to skip the first, skip the second, skip the third, and we are going to work into the chain 1 space that is part of the V-stitch from below. Into that V-stitch chain 1 space, this area right here, we are going to V-stitch. So we're going to double crochet into the space here, chain 1, and double crochet into the same space. That's the V-stitch. Next, we are going to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip this one, and now we're going to work into the following stitch. And in the following stitch, this is the first stitch of our repeat that we will complete for the remainder of the row. So just note that the repeat starts with these next instructions. So the next set of instructions is that we are going to double crochet in the next 5 stitches. So once again, we've skipped those 2, and into the following stitch, double crochet. Into the next stitch, double crochet. The next one, double crochet. Next one, double crochet. And then the next one, double crochet. And you can see that these 5 stitches are all being worked into the shell that we made in row 1. And there were 7 stitches made in the shell, so you can just see that these 5 are centered in the shell, if that helps you just know where you're crocheting into. Okay, so we've just made 5 double crochet stitches. We are going to skip the next 2 stitches. So we're going to skip the next and work into the chain 1 space of the V-stitch from below, and we are going to V-stitch. So a V-stitch is double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. Now we are going to skip the next 2 stitches and start our repeat again. So that was the entire repeat. The repeat is crochet, double crochet in the next 5 stitches, skip the next 2 stitches, working into the chain 1 space, V-stitch, skip the next 2 stitches, and that is the entire repeat. So I'll keep going. We'll do this one more time until we get to finish the repeat again, and then I'll explain what we do at the end and then show you after you're finished. Okay, so skip the next 2 stitches, and once again, double crochet in the next 5 stitches, which are the center stitches of your shell from below. So that's 3, 4, and 5. And then the repeat says to skip the next 2 stitches, skip, skip, into the chain 1 space, V-stitch. And then you'll skip the next 2 stitches. That's what you're going to do all the way across the row. So continue repeating 5 double crochet stitches, skipping 2, V-stitch, skipping 2, all the way across. When you finish your row, you will, as part of the repeat, what it says is to always skip the next 2 stitches after the V-stitch. So that's included in the repeat, 1, 2, and you should have 2 stitches left. So come back to the video when you have those 2 stitches left and we'll finish the row together. All right, so you should have just completed your last V-stitch, skipping the next 2. There's 2 stitches left, and into each of these stitches we are going to double crochet. 1 double crochet into each of the last 2 stitches. And now we're going to work into the turning chain after we've done that. When we work into the turning chain, which we're going to at the end of every row, we're always going to work into the top. So we're going to find the topmost chain of the 3 chains we make at the beginning of a row, and we're going to work into that. So for this row, we are just going to make 1 double crochet stitch into the turning chain. And it can be tricky, I'm not going to lie, but just try to work. I try always to work into 2 loops of the turning chain. So and it's tight, but it's really important. Sometimes I have to even try again to try to get the right placement of my hook. And sometimes nails are required. So there we go. And now finish your double crochet. So at the end of row 2, you should have a total of 105 stitches. Let's now begin row 3. So to start row 3, we're going to chain 3 and turn. In the first stitch, the stitch that's attached to the turning chain, we are going to double crochet. Now we are going to skip the next 3 stitches. So skip, skip, skip. And we are going to work directly into the chain 1 space that was created from the V-stitch below. And into that chain 1 space, we are going to make a shell. As a reminder, a shell is 7 double crochet stitches into the same space. So now I have 7 double crochet stitches made in that chain 1 space. Next, we are going to skip the next 3 stitches. So skip 1, skip 2, skip 3. So we're going to be working into this stitch, which is the middle of the 5 double crochet stitches that we made in the row below. And this set of instructions, or this next instruction, is the start of the repeat that we will start for the rest of the row. So we skip 3 stitches. Into that next stitch, we are going to make a V-stitch. So we will double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. Now we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into the chain 1 space in the V-stitch below, we're going to make a shell. And then we are going to skip the next 3 stitches. So we are going to do that all the way across, repeating the instructions from the V-stitch. So V-stitch, skip 3 stitches, make a shell in the chain 1 space, skip 3 stitches. So you're going to do that all the way across the row. At the very end, you will have just made a shell in the last V-stitch from below, and then as part of the repeat, you'll skip the next 3 stitches, and you actually won't have any stitches left in the row, or you shouldn't at least. Come back to the video because we are going to do something with the turning chain. So I will see you once you've completed that repeat all the way across the row. So I've just made my last shell, and as part of the repeat, we have to skip the next 3 stitches, And that is the rest of the stitches in the row. Sometimes the turning chain can look like an extra stitch, but just make sure that you're only counting the stitches. So into the turning chain, we are going to make 2 double crochet stitches. So always working into the top of the turning chain. And we're going to make 2 double crochet stitches into the same place. And that completes row 3. You should have a total of 136 stitches at the end of row 3. All right, to start row 4, we're going to chain 3 and turn. Working into the first stitch, we're going to double crochet. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and we are going to double crochet in each of the next 5 stitches. So skip, skip, and double crochet in the next 5 stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and into the chain 1 space, we are going to make a V-stitch. And this V-stitch is the first part of the repeat that we will do all the way across. So let's do a V-stitch now after we skip those 2 stitches. And after this V-stitch, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip, and now make 5 double crochet stitches into the next 5 stitches. And then after making the 5 double crochet stitches, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So for the rest of the row, make a V-stitch, skip the next 2 stitches, make 5 double crochet stitches across 5 stitches, and skip 2 stitches. This will take you to the very end of the row. You should have no stitches left after you've skipped the next 2 stitches after your last 5 double crochet stitches, but come back to the video and we'll do the turning chain together. After my last 5 double crochet stitches, I skipped the next 2, so there's actually no stitches left, but working into the turning chain, we are going to make 2 double crochet stitches into the turning chain. Working into the top of it, 1 and 2. The end of round 4, you should have 106 stitches completed. All right, to start row 5, we are going to chain 3 and turn. In the first stitch, we're going to make 3 double crochet stitches into that first stitch. So there's 1, 2, and 3 into that first stitch. Now we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into the next stitch, we're going to make a V-stitch. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work into the chain 1 space of the V-stitch below, and into that space we are going to make a shell. And this starts the repeat that we will do for the rest of the row. So let's do 7 double crochet stitches into that chain 1 space. With our shell now completed, we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into the next stitch, make a V-stitch. And then after picking out dog here, then we skip the next 3 stitches. That's the entire repeat for the row. So after skipping those 3 stitches, we're going to make a shell in the chain 1 space, skip the next 3 stitches, make a V-stitch, and then skip 3 stitches. At the end of the row, you should have no stitches left, ensuring that you include the 3 skip stitches that you'll skip after your last V-stitch. So come back to the video and we will do the end of the row together. So after your last V-stitch, you'll skip the next 3 stitches. There should be no stitches left, and into the turning chain, we're going to make 4 double crochet stitches into that turning chain. So that is 1, 2, 3, and 4. At the end of row 5, you should have a total of 135 stitches. For the rest of the blanket body pattern, you are going to be completing rows 2 through 5 over and over again. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, until you are 2.5 inches away from your desired height. For me, for the blanket size that I made, that was approximately 33.5 inches or 69 rows. So once you're 2.5 inches away from however high you want to make the blanket or however long the height of it, you're going to, at that point, what you're going to do, and so up until that point, you're just repeating rows 2 through 5. And only when you are once you're 2.5 inches away from your desired height, you're going to do rows 2, 3, and 4. And why I have the instructions that way is to make sure that you end after row 4. That is really important when we go to make the border, that you finish the blanket after row 4. So you go ahead and come back to the video. We're going to pick up right where we left off. We're going to start the border. Once you've reached your desired height, do not fasten off. We'll come and start the border together. So we'll have lots of fun making this blanket body, and refer back to the video, watch those rows over and over again, because it just repeats the same thing, rows 2 through 5 until your desired height that you're really close to. Then just do rows 2, 3, and 4, end after row 4, and come back to the video and we'll do the border together. Happy crocheting and talk soon. Now that you've reached your desired height, you should have just completed row 4. So it's really important that you've just ended after row 4. So we're not going to fasten off. We are simply going to, and we're not even going to turn, we're just going to chain 1. Now we're going to work down the side of the blanket, but I'm going to turn so it's easier to see. Working down the side, we are going to single crochet into the stitches and turning chains at the ends of each row, evenly and loosely down the side. So I've just chained 1, and we're going to find one of the first stitches to work into, and it's tight and it's not an exact science, but you are just going to single crochet loosely and evenly all the way down the side. So you go ahead and crochet loosely and evenly all the way down the side. Exact number of stitches doesn't matter. Sometimes I work into 2 loops. Sometimes I'll work into only 1. The border is quite forgiving, but just make sure that you are working loosely. So you see how I'm not doing it too tight? That's what I mean by loosely. And evenly, just meaning that you want to space out your single crochet stitches evenly all along the side. And come back to the video and we'll do the corner and bottom together. Now that I've single crocheted all the way down the side, I'm going to find the cornermost stitch or space. It's not an exact science, just try to find the place closest to the corner. So I'm thinking that's going to be a good one, which means I'm going to make 1 more single crochet stitch before I find the most corner-ish space or stitch. And into that corner stitch, I'm going to make 3 single crochet stitches into the same stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to turn so it's the right way up. We're going to be working along the bottom, but I'm going to rotate it to make it easier to work in. We're going to work into the chains along the bottom, but what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet into 9 chains and then skip a chain, and then single crochet into 9 chains and then skip a chain. 9 skip, 9 skip. And you're going to do that all the way across. So you go ahead and do that and come back after your last skipped chain before the corner, and we'll finish the bottom together. So I've just completed my last set of 9 single crochet stitches. So this next chain is the one I'm going to skip. And what I wanted to mention is that after your last skip chain, just single crochet into whatever number is left. It does not matter how many chains you have left, just single crochet into the corner. So I'm going to skip this one and then working into the chains, just single crochet until the corner, no matter how many you have left. Now in the corner, I'm going to make what you should do is make 3 single crochet stitches into that corner stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. Now working up the other side, we're going to do the exact same thing we did for the first side, and we're going to work into the turning chains and stitches at the ends of each row and just work loosely and evenly as you fix your stitches all the way up. So I'll meet you at the top of this side. With my side now completed, I'm going to make 3 single crochet stitches into the cornerish, that's why I call it my new word, cornerish, the most corner space or stitch. So this looks like a good space right here to make 3 single crochet stitches. Now working along the top, we're going to work into the tops of all the stitches. The only exception here is that we're not going to work into the chain stitches. So in row 4, there was a V-stitch where there's a chain 1 in the middle, and we're not going to crochet into that chain stitch, but we will single crochet into every other stitch across the top. So you go ahead and do that and meet me back once you've completed single crocheting across the top, but don't work into the chain stitches. So I'm almost finished single crocheting across the top, and I wanted to point out where my chain 1 stitch is, where I started the round. So that's what started the round, and in the last stitch before that chain 1, we're just going to make 1 single crochet into that stitch. We're not going to make 3 single crochet stitches into this corner. We will for every other corner, but just not this one time. So we're just gonna make one single crochet stitch. We're gonna skip over that chain and slip stitch into the first single crochet stitch that we made in this round. So slip stitch, and that completes border round 1. To start border round 2, we are going to chain 1 and turn. Now, right away for me, I'm at a corner stitch. You might not be quite at a corner stitch just yet. If your stitch was a little bit lower than mine, you may have a stitch to make before the corner. What this round involves is just single crocheting all the way around, and in each corner, all 4 corners, making 3 single crochet stitches. So whenever you arrive at a corner, you're going to make 3 single crochet stitches into the same corner stitch. But in every other stitch around, you'll just make a single crochet stitch. So since I'm right at the corner, I'm going to go right into making my 3 single crochet stitches. And then I'm going to single crochet all the way across. Then in the corner, 3 single crochet stitches, single crochet all the way down, in the corner, 3 single crochet stitches, all the way across the bottom, single crochet in the corner, 3 single crochet stitches, single crochet all the way up. And when you're just about there, let's come back to the video and we'll join the round together. So I have one last stitch to make before I can join the round. And now we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet stitch that we made to start the round. And that's it. Let's begin border round 3. And border round 3 is exactly the same as border round 2. So we're going to chain 1 and turn and repeat what we just did. We're going to single crochet in each stitch across, making 3 single crochet stitches in each of the 4 corner stitches, and come back to the video to join the round, and we will do that together. So I'm just about at the place where I started, but I thought it'd be helpful to do the last corner and show you what that looks like. So I've just single crocheted all the way around, making 3 single crochet stitches. So right now I personally have 2 stitches left. One's the corner and one's 1 additional stitch. But if you don't have this exact number, that's okay. So into that last corner, I'm making 3 single crochet stitches, and then making 1 last single crochet stitch in my last stitch. And now I'm going to join the round by making a slip stitch into the first single crochet I made to start the round. And that completes border round 3. For border round 4, we are not going to turn, but we are going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. But we are not going to turn. So work is still facing in the same direction. In that very first stitch, we are going to double crochet. Now we're going to skip the next stitch, and in the following stitch, make a V-stitch. So a V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the same stitch. And then you're going to skip the next stitch, V-stitch in the next stitch, skip, V-stitch, skip, V-stitch all the way across, and come back to the video and we'll do the corner together. As you approach the corner, you're going to have one of 2 scenarios, and it may change for each corner. So it's important to know what to do in both situations. So first scenario, the easiest one, is that your pattern works out exactly. So in this case, for me, it did. Following the pattern, I skip the next stitch, I V-stitch in the next stitch, I skip the next, and then I'm going to do my special stitch in the corner. But as you approach a corner, if this isn't the case, if for any reason, let's just pretend that's my corner stitch. So as you can see, I have 2 stitches before the corner. So how to fix that is by backing up, removing one of the V-stitches that you made. And instead of just skipping 1 stitch before the corner to make the pattern work, we're going to actually skip 2. So 1, 2, and then I would V-stitch here, and then skip the next stitch, and then do my special corner stitch in the corner. So that's how you would fix this situation if the pattern's not working out. So now I'm approaching the corner. We have 1 space left in between a V-stitch and the corner stitch. And what we're going to do in each of the 4 corners, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to V-stitch, chain 1, and V-stitch into the same corner stitch. So what that looks like is double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and that creates our first V-stitch. And now we're going to chain 1 and do another V-stitch, which is double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, and that's all in the same corner stitch. So you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around, skip the next stitch, V-stitch, skip, V-stitch, all the way to the corner. In each of the 4 corners, you're going to do V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch. And when you're getting close to the end of the round, come back to the video and we'll do that together. After your last corner stitch, which is the V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, you may have 1 stitch or 2 stitches left, and either one is absolutely fine. It's okay to go off course of the pattern just for this part. So now to finish the round, we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that we made to start the round. So we're going to slip stitch into that chain 3, and that completes border round 4. For border round 5 and 6, because both this round and the next round are exactly the same thing, we are going to chain 3. We are not going to turn. We are going to work into the space right below the chains we just made, in between the starting chains from the previous round and that first double crochet stitch from the previous round. So into that space here, we will double crochet. And now we are going to work into the chain 1 spaces, I should say, from the V-stitches in the round below. So in the first V-stitch here, and in the chain 1 space, we're going to make another V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. You're going to do a V-stitch into each chain 1 space all the way around, with the exception of the corners. At the corners, you're going to do the exact same in all 4 corners. You'll see that there are 3 spaces. The first space between the first 2 double crochet stitches underneath the chain 1, you're going to treat as a regular V-stitch. In the middle one, so in between the 2 middle double crochet stitches, this is the corner stitch. And this is where you will do a V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, all into that corner space. And then the last space of the corner, we treat as a regular V-stitch, and you will V-stitch into that. So at every corner, V-stitch, V-stitch, chain 1, V-stitch, V-stitch, and then V-stitch, 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 all the way around. Come back to the video when you've completed your last corner, and we will finish the round together. So I'm almost finished border round 5, and I have 1 chain 1 space left to make a V-stitch into. So I'll just quickly do that to complete the round. And now we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that started the round. There we go. For round 6, as I mentioned, is exactly the same as round 5. So you don't turn, you're going to chain 3. You're going to work your first stitch in between the 3 starting chains and the first double crochet stitch from the previous round, and then in every single V-stitch into the chain 1 space, you're going to make another V-stitch, and in all 4 corners, exact same thing. In the middle, you're going to V-stitch, chain 1, and V-stitch. And just like we did to join the round, at the very end of your round, you're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that started the round. So do that now, come back to the video, and we will do border round 7, which is the very last part of this pattern together. So for the purpose of this video, can you just pretend that I've just completed round 6, because it's exactly the same as round 5. I'm going to go right into round 7. So for round 7, we are going to chain 1, and once again, we are not going to turn. In the space between the chain 3 and the first double crochet stitch from the previous round, right into that space here, we are going to slip stitch. Okay. In the next V-stitch, chain 1 space, we are going to make 8 double crochet stitches into this space. Now, in the essence of time, I'm going to fast forward this, but all I'm doing is making 8 double crochet stitches into the same V-stitch. So I have 8 double crochet stitches now made. Next, I'm going to skip the next V-stitch. In the following V-stitch, into the chain 1 space, I'm going to slip stitch. And then we're going to repeat the same thing we just did, starting with the 8 double crochet stitches. So after we made a slip stitch into that chain 1 space, in the next one, 8 double crochet stitches into this chain 1 space. Skip the next chain 1 space. In the following chain 1 space, slip stitch. So 8 double crochet, skip, slip stitch. And you're going to do that all the way to the corner. Go ahead and do that now, and as you approach the corner, come back to the video and we'll do the corner together. As you approach the corner, you will have one of 2 scenarios. One is that your pattern is going to work out exactly, and that's wonderful. You can just go right to the instructions for the corner stitch. But as you can see here, since this is my corner stitch, my pattern is not going to work out. So our goal when approaching the corner stitch is for the V-stitch chain 1 space before the corner, this one, should be a slip stitch. The one before that should be a skipped stitch, and the one before that should be 8 double crochet stitches in the same chain 1 space. But as you can see, I've just completed that. So what do we do in this situation? Well, we simply back up. And by backing up, I just mean going backwards and going, and you might need to back up quite a few stitches to make this work. So what I'm going to do is, after this 8 double crochet stitches, I'm going to slip stitch into the next chain 1 space instead of skipping, just to make this work. In the next chain 1 space, I'm going to do 8 double crochet stitches, and I'll just tell you about it because you've seen me do this. So that will allow me to do the 8 here, and then I'm going to slip stitch and do my final 8 double crochet stitches into this stitch so that I can approach the corner correctly. So this is going to be my last 8 double crochet stitches, then I can skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the space before the corner, and then I can work into the corner while following the pattern. So now I've adjusted my stitches so that I can approach the corner correctly. I've done 8 in the next chain 1 space. I'm going to skip that. Into the next one, I'm going to slip stitch. Now in the corner space, we are going to make 10 double crochet stitches into that corner space. And we're going to do that for every corner. After we've made our 10 double crochet stitches into the same corner space, you will continue the pattern. So you're going to skip the next chain 1 space, slip stitch into the next, and go back to repeating 8 double crochet stitches into the next chain 1 space, skip, slip stitch, 8 stitches, skip, slip stitch, 8 double crochet stitches, I should add, all the way across. And then when you get to all the corners, you're going to do the exact same thing, adjust the pattern if necessary so you can approach the corner by your second last stitch before the corner, or I should say the last stitch before the corner will be a slip stitch, the one before that should be skipped, and the one before that should be the 8 double crochet stitches. So you're going to do that all the way around and come back to the video and we will finish off the blanket together. After your last corner of 10 double crochet stitches, you may have 1 or 2 chain 1 spaces left. We're going to skip either 1 or 2 of those. If you have more, just continue making the pattern, and if you need to make adjustments to ensure things work out, just do what we did about the corner stitch. We're going to skip 1 or 2, and we're going to slip stitch into the first slip stitch that we made that started the round. Do you remember we worked into the first space here? So there's a slip stitch there, and that's exactly what we are going to slip stitch into. And that is that. That completes the pattern. All that's left to do now is fasten off and weave in all your loose ends. I hope you enjoyed making this blanket. I'd be delighted if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.